Hey everybody, I decided to get out and show you a couple of places where we lived that I've already talked about, since I hadn't felt good, I didn't want, my whole purpose of doing this is showing you the places where we lived. Except I know I can't go to Texas, but I can show you local places that we lived here in Tuscaloosa. And this apartment that we had over here, I don't even know if it's still there or not, but and I'll have to look at my notes over here too, which move that was. But anyway, this is when he worked at the cable company, and we didn't own a vehicle at the time, and he had a company truck that he drove back and forth to work in, and he wanted to have another baby, so he started pressuring me, into trying to have another child. And I just wasn't a strong enough person to stand up to him. I told my daughter this one time, and she smarted off at me and told me that nobody forced me to give in to him, but that's not the point. The point is that when he usually got what he wanted, he knew how to manipulate me, and everything. So there was no way we could afford another child. I mean, we didn't even have a vehicle, and what really during all this time, he felt that God wanted him to be a preacher. He was really adamant about preaching and ministering and singing and that kind of stuff. And I don't know, I just had a different outlook on things. I just feel like if you aren't living the way you should be living, that you shouldn't even be thinking about doing those kinds of things, because that's just, I don't know. I just don't understand how people think. All right, there's the big water tower there, and let's see. I do see the apartment is right down here on the right. We lived in the bottom floor there back in 1970 or 1980, I think. That's where we lived. And I will go ahead and show you a couple other places that we lived over here in this area. It's not a very great area now, but used to. I mean, it was a decent place over here. And when our kids were older, I think my son was 16. He got his very first car when we lived over here. Let's see. Is that? No, I don't know if that's it or not. It may be on down that way a little bit. Oh, it's right down here, I think. Yeah, no? Is that it? No, that's not it. Oh, I see it. We lived in this house right here. For about a year. This is on Virginia Drive. My 16-year-old son got his very first car when we lived at that house. And we were working at the mall. We had a friend of ours had this company called Calligraphy Gallery, and they helped us get set up with it. And we set up from early November to Christmas Eve. We did that 2 years in a row. And I remember, well, the first time we did it, I was working at Gayfer's and doing that too. We set up a booth in the mall, and we sold these little calligraphy poems and stuff, and we put them in frames and everything, and so I was doing both jobs. And I remember coming home at night just in so much pain I could barely walk. And now this is all in the same neighborhood. I mean, pretty much we lived several different places over here. We bought a trailer when our kids were teenage. Well, Charity was first grade. Anyway, we had a trailer that was on that lot right there, 4121 Bastille Drive. And we were buying a trailer, and he fell and broke his wrist building a deck. Now, let me tell you a story when we lived there. This house right here, my sister-in-law moved into. And she was married to another man that did air conditioning work. My husband had started his own business. Well, we would get up in the morning, and there would be Gatorade bottles all in our yard, like 20 Gatorade bottles, and we had no idea, like, where were they coming from. And so my sister-in-law living here, we were not on good terms at all at that time. And so we started staying up late at night looking out the window watching. And it was her husband that was coming by, and he was just chunking those Gatorade bottles out in our yard. And he did that for several nights. We called the police. They told him to stop. He wouldn't stop. And we had to go to court over it. I mean, just being annoying. And so it was just big, stupid mess. And that's where we lived when my sister-in-law's, one of her husbands, decided to go to Alberta and rob a bank. and he had threatened the family. So we lost a lot of sleep until they caught him, which they caught him in another state, dressed up like a woman. And he claimed he hid the money somewhere in some field, something and another. But anyway, we set up a lot of nights in our trailer there. Now, that trailer that's on that lot now was not our trailer. We had a nice trailer. And, but, just crazy, stupid mess like that his family, my husband's family was just into that stupid stuff. And it was stressful, and it was aggravating. You minding your own business. My husband's trying to run his business. So they really got mad at him for opening up his own business because she and her husband, the one that threw the Gatorade bottles, wanted her ex-husband, the one that robbed the bank, to work with them and run an air conditioning business. So anyway, there was a big trailer park right over here that was blown away by the tornado. But we lived in it. We lived in that trailer. We were going to buy it. And I do not know what happened. I don't remember what happened. I don't know if my husband lost his job, and we were back to square one, and we had to move back in with my parents. We didn't have a car, so we were trying to live as close to them as we could. And so, this is the new Holt High School that I would have never dreamed in a million years would be over in this neighborhood. This is the neighborhood I grew up in. And so this used to be a really nice neighborhood, one of the nicest neighborhoods over here in Holt. And a lot of pretty brick homes, and now it's just a bunch of run-down double-wide trailers, and but we lived right down here when the tornado hit, and let's see which lot. This lot right here, where that double wide is where we lived when the tornado hit. And this house right here is where my mother and my stepdad lived, and their home was destroyed. And my stepdad gave everything to my half-brother, and they built a nice home in this area over here, which is pretty ridiculous. But anyway, needless to say, my stepdad he decided that my sister and I didn't deserve anything, so he just decided that he would give it all to my half-brother. So that didn't go over very well, but there was nothing you could do about it. And I couldn't do that. I'm not that kind of person. I'm not a greedy person at all. There is no way that I would even accept something like that. But he didn't care for us because we stood up for our mother when she was sick and dying and everything. And he always felt like Pepto-Bismol cured everything. When she's hemorrhaging and about dead of Crohn's disease and vomiting and everything, and I made her go to the hospital, and she ended up in intensive care, and so he just wanted to show out because my mother would listen to me and she would listen to him. But she ended up passing away anyway after 6 weeks in the hospital, and you know, he gave everything to them, and so, but anyway, it's nothing but a slum area. They'll never get anything out of that house, and I don't mind if they see this. I don't care. That's what they deserve. So anyway, oh, let me show you. We lived over here. I hope I can get down that road without getting shot at. When our kids were little and my daughter was going to elementary school for the first time, we lived over here because my husband, when he owned his own business, he wanted to be like everybody else. He wanted to drive a nice, he wanted to keep up with all our friends, what they had and everything. So he got us in debt. And so we had to move down here with his parents, which they rented this little house. They've cleaned it up down here. It looks pretty nice. His parents lived in this little house here, and they actually built that little room on there so she could sit outside and smoke. And after we lived there for a little while, we moved across the street and we lived over here. And it was a really cute house. My son stayed with his grandmother across the street. They crossed the street here. And one day he came walking across the road and said, I can't breathe. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, something popped in my chest and I can't breathe. So I took him to the emergency room, and he had his lung collapsed, and so they had to do emergency, chest tube and everything. And then he got better, and then it happened again, so they had to do surgery. And so anyway, I think that's everywhere we lived over in the Holt. No, I take that back. There was another house that we lived at. Yeah, there's another house over here. And I will tell you, these houses that we lived in were not, we didn't move because I didn't get along with my landlords. No, not at all. And I'll tell you, when I get to the point of when we moved to those places, I'll tell you what happened and why we moved. And I don't care what my ex-husband says. He was never satisfied anywhere we lived unless it was, you know, a really nice, you know, something that he wanted to show off, something that made him feel like he was important. You know, he liked people thinking that he had something when he had nothing. And so this house over here, he did a job for the man that owned it. His name was John Bowen. They were in the National Guard together. And my husband came home one day and said, I'm putting the air conditioning work in for his new house. He said that he would rent us this house over here, you know, it was a really good deal. I don't remember where we moved from at the time, but you know, I'm like, well, you know, okay, that's fine, you know. And so it had a little above ground pool, and it was right at the beginning of summer, and my kids just, you know, they played in that pool, and it was just a great, you know, it was a great summer there. And so, but when the the power bill started coming in, you know, it was a pretty big house. So when the power bill started coming in, we were, you know, pretty shocked that it was as high as it was. So we, you know, started struggling, you know, because of how expensive it was to live in that house. It's right up here on the hill. It's a brick house. It's right there. I don't have the pool there anymore. But, so we just couldn't afford that house anymore because we couldn't afford the utilities in it. You know, wintertime came and his work slowed down. And that was the thing about a lot of the reasons we moved was because in the summertime, his work, you know, was booming. You know, he was doing a lot of air conditioning work. So, you know, we could afford, you know, to live in a nicer place. That's it. A lot nicer back then than it is now. But anyway, when winter came around, work was hard to come by. And because we really don't have really bad winters here. We just have, it can get bad, but most of the winters here are pretty mild. And people just don't have a lot of problems with their heating systems. And so, you know, work would get slow, and then we would have to start looking for something cheaper, you know, to live in. And then we would find it, and then, you know, summertime come around again, and, you know, we were living in a dump, so, you know, he would start talking about, you know, wanting something better. So that was a lot of the reasons we moved so much. So anyway, that's the tour of Holt, where we lived. Just about all over Holt. And so anyway, I was wanting us to find us a place. I didn't care if it was a dumpy trailer. I wanted to find something that we could live in, buy, and fix it up, resell it, and then buy something nicer, and move our way up. But he wanted everything right then. He had an image to keep up. He wanted people to think, that he was important. And so anyway, this is a little tour of Holt where we lived. I will go over, when I get to that particular place, I will tell you more about it. When we moved there, and where we moved from, and that sort of thing. But I don't know, I was just getting stir crazy sitting at home, and I thought, I'm going to get out and I'm going to do this. I've put this off for a long time, and the reason I have is because it is embarrassing. It's embarrassing for my kids. But after this, after being sick like this, and they really just acted like they didn't care if I died, and sometimes I think they were a little disappointed that I didn't. I think they're a little disappointed that I got over it. That's just how I feel. That's how they made me feel. So, I don't care anymore. My ex-husband has caused a lot of damage with my relationship with my kids because of the things that he has led them to believe. And, I've really tried to overlook it and hoping that one day that they'll really see. But, like I said, my daughter hasn't spoke to me. Maybe I can count on one hand how many times she has messaged me or spoke to me. I don't get to see my grandchildren. I haven't seen them in 5 years. I've bought their Christmas gifts, and I would end up having to give it to them sometime in April for Easter. I would end up giving them their Christmas. Their birthdays are in February, and April is Easter. So I would end up giving them, their stuff, in April instead of on time. So I don't buy anything anymore. I'm tired, and I can't anymore. I can't buy anything anymore. I am almost busted money-wise. And so I'm having some issues with my car that I'm not sure how much it's going to take to fix it. So I'm basically fixing to have to start selling some of my belongings, in the next few weeks, just so I can get my car fixed, because I can't do anything without my car. And, my son knows about my car. So anyway, I'm going to stop the video. I don't know how. I've been on it 30 minutes, so I'm going to be putting a lot of videos up because I'm fixing to start posting them on Facebook. And, you know, if it offends you, you'll just have to get over it, because I've been dealing with this for a long time, and I am through. I'm fed up with it. So I will check you out on the next video.